Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium. I have been, working on a project. So we are using the pre-made Graphic 45 rectangle tag and pocket album, which is probably, I think, my first tutorial using a pre-made album. I really like how these are made, but I wanted to show you how you can personalize it. So while tearing into it and just decorating it is absolutely 100% a totally awesome way of using it, there is a way to, make it fabulous. and here's the one that I have opened. And so there are some plain pages as well as these pocket pages. And you get as well these tags, which is why it's the tag and pocket. So each one, there's actually, how many sections? 6 sections, I believe. Yeah. So if you look at the top here, there's 6 little sections, and each section starts off with a plain page. Then it's followed by pocket page, and also has a side pocket, and then it finishes off with the plain pages again. So I had an idea, and my idea is this, that we will add a waterfall at the front and back, that we are going to do something else with these the tags, and we are possibly also going to add an extra little flap in between each one of these sections, again, to personalize it and kind of make it a little bit different. We will use these side pockets as well. And so, hopefully this gives you a little bit of inspiration. If you have one of these and have not yet used it, then hopefully you are finding this to be of some help and assistance when it comes to that. And like I said before, if you are these pre-made albums are made so that you can just, really focus on the decorating part as opposed to, building your own album, which, sometimes time is of the essence. And so the decorating is really what you want to focus on, which is absolutely perfect. I'm using the Graphic 45 Blossom paper. I've used some of the 8x8, a lot of the 12x12, and I've even got the die cut assortment. So we're tucking into basically everything today. I will make this more than a one video tutorial because there are so many parts to it that I figured it was easier to break it up, I should say, into multiple sections as opposed to just doing one really long video, which can get a little bit daunting, I'm sure. Okay, so we're going to start off with the different things that I've done to basically personalize it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go through, got a ton of, obviously this now that you added, there's a ton of space anyways, but then once you start adding, it kind of expands that space that you have to decorate, which, is great because now you're using your cardstock. So these little flaps, all it is, I'm just looking here, plain pages. No, I haven't, thought I had some notes. Well, I have done. Oh, okay, yeah. So these little plain pieces of cardstock are 4.5 by 6 1/8. We scored it at 3/8 of an inch. I wanted to give it as much stability as possible, but of course was limited in terms of what space I had already on the spine. So that's what I came up with. It wouldn't accommodate a 1/2 inch. So I did the maximum like kind of flap as I possibly could. Yeah, so 4.5. I'm just checking because it was a long time since I've actually cut these. So 6 1/8, 4.5, 6 1/8, score at 3/8. I did 6 of these. So they're going to be at the beginning of each section. So the flap will fit perfectly here. It will fit right in there as well. Oh, it's a little bit tight. Sometimes they may not all be exact, so you may have to kind of modify a little bit. So if it means that I have to trim off a little bit more, then I'll just have to trim it off. But I've got all my pieces cut for right now, and as I go and as I fit them in, if it needs a bit of trimming, it needs a bit of trimming. It's not a big deal. Okay, so we've got 6 of these pieces. The other things that I have done is with these tags, if you can see, I've scored them across. I don't have, and it doesn't really mean that I couldn't have used these as tags because they are perfectly, you know, acceptable to use them as tags. And I've got little pieces cut. I am looking for them right now. I cut these pieces from the decorator paper, and obviously I rounded the corners so that they would fit really nicely on the tag. I know that Graphic 45 also has a die that will, you know, cut the shape out so it follows the exact shape of the tag. I don't have those dies, so this is what I came up with instead. And I scored it at the top because I'm going to do like a little bit of a flap. And so, yeah. So anyways, so that is kind of what I've done for those. So the tags aren't really being used as tags. So, I mean, that's the other way I've kind of personalized it. And the other way that I have, you know, figured I would kind of make this my own is by adding a waterfall at the front, and I'll be doing a waterfall at the back as well. And so I obviously won't be adding these in until the designer or the decorative paper is in there first. So to get this party started, we'll just start by adding in, we can add in these pieces. Oh, actually what I want to do is I'm going to go through this really quickly and just make sure that we have enough space to add in these flaps without being, you know, too kind of, without the flap being too big. So this one is totally fine. I'm going to actually number them. And this way, when I come back to install, because it'll be easier to decorate not installed. So I think that's the way I'm going to go. And I just am going to go through and fit them in. See, that one is going to kind of get a little bit mangled, I feel like. It's like 1/8 of an inch, probably too big. So I'm going to set that off to the side and just grab my little paper trimmer, my itty bitty one. And I'm going to be sure to just take off what I need. So 4.5, I don't know, a 1/16 may work too. So let's try with a 1/16 first and see if that works. Because if I can manage to take off the least amount as possible, then that will obviously work to my benefit. Don't want to make it too small. Oh yeah, that's working. Okay, that's perfect. That works perfectly, and I have a feeling for the rest. There was a little bit more space on the first one than there was on the second one, so I feel like a 1/16 is probably going to have to be taken off the rest of these. Yeah. Okie dokie. So what that means for the rest of these. So I've done one then at 4.25 by, 4.5 by 6 1/8. And then the rest are going to be 4.5. They're going to just be, like I said, a 1/16 trimmed off. So that will be, give me 1 second. I've got to count this out now. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 4 7/16. So it's one little dash back from 4.5. And by taking that 1/16 of an inch off, it's going to fit in nicely. So I'm just going to do that to the rest of my little papers here. Okay, so now that I'm done with these, I have also introduced this blue, which I feel like really goes well with a lot of the little blue accents within the collection. And this is just a solid blue that I got at Michael's, I believe. And the reason why is there were only so many of the cut aparts that went vertically as opposed to horizontally. And that's what I was using or wanted to use. And so when I ran out of the larger 4 by 6 cut aparts, I started using the smaller ones, but I used 2 and I wanted to have something more in the background. So that's why I introduced this, this blue paper. So just kind of as a secondary like accent color, I guess. So the cards typically are 4 by 6. These ones are cut just a little bit smaller, so a little bit of the blue kind of just peeks out. So it's not like, it looks like it's part of the card, to be honest. So these cards are cut at 3 7/8 by 5 7/8. So your blue sheet is cut at 4 by 6. It's not necessary to go through this step, but I just wanted to. So, so that's how that came about. And I'm just going to grab my liquid glue. I'm going to start layering these pieces. I did cut twice as many of the solid blue, because on the back I'm just going to put one of these pieces and leave it at that. So that way it could be a photo mat. Makes a really quick and easy photo mat. I absolutely love this collection. It's just so, I don't know, it's like, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Leave it at that. A lot of the times I was struggling to, to pick, because of course with the double-sided paper you have two very beautiful patterns to usually, to decide like what is it that you are going to do. I'm just going to mat these for right now, and then when I go through them again, that's when I'm going to decide what I want where, just because that first panel is slightly different. I can't just kind of attach them all right now and then figure it out later. Whatever I put on that first one is going to be my number one. After that, they're all the same. So, which is, one of the reasons why dry fitting and just making sure that everything fits. I mean, the pre-made albums are usually pretty good about the, being all the same, but it's still something you know, just like if it were handmade, it's, you know, you can do your best to be as accurate as possible, but it isn't always 100% true. So better to check before you've applied it than, you know, try to apply it and it be, you know, too small, or whoops, I keep on pulling from my photo mat pile. So anyhow, so I'm going to finish doing these and then we have to make some decisions. Okay, so now we've got our 6 cards done, including these two, and I may add some more to that. I'm not 100% sure yet on those. So these are the 4 that we have, and I think I like this one for the front. So I'm going to do that one, followed by this one, then Serenity, Blossom, and yeah, I'm gonna switch around those. Okay, perfect. So that's how I'm gonna lay them out. And so now it's just basically applying them to the actual inserts that we're going to be putting in. And I chose, originally I think I was going to go with a super dark, like midnight navy blue, which is more the blue I think I'm drawn to, as opposed to this, I think it's like a Wedgwood blue almost. But with the dark blue, some of them had dark blue borders and it just kind of got lost. So I found like this blue really does kind of stand out a little bit more. It just adds a little something, kind of like inking your edges. It's kind of the same thing. It adds a little bit of something, but unless you have a lot of it showing, it really, you know, it just adds a little bit of something. Except for these pages where there's a lot of something. I don't have stamps that really, I feel like, would go. But I do have a lot of the die cuts. So I probably will go back once the album is completed. Go back through and add some in there, because there's a lot of cute small ones. So I think that's in all likelihood that's what's going to happen. Okay. So we are done with that. I'm going to grab some of my double-sided tape. I think a quarter, you know, except for this first one, which I may get away. Oh no, I don't think I have anything open that is going to fit here. Yeah, I don't like it going right to the score line, because then it gets a little bit touch and go for a minute. Alrighty. Okay, so all of these are done, and I mean, installation is, I think, pretty self-explanatory. Kind of wondering if I should do that now. Oh wait, I need to do the backs. Sorry, getting a little bit ahead of myself there. I gotta put the photo mats on the back first, and then I think I'll set these aside until I don't really want to, you know, impede my ability to add these or add the other decorative paper to the other pages. So I think I'm going to leave them out of the album for right now. We're going to build our waterfall. I'll go through the steps on how to build the waterfalls, and then I'll go through some of the other measurements. Okay, so all of these pages are now done. I'm going to set those aside, and then we are going to get to our waterfalls. Okay, so just 2 waterfalls because there's quite a bit of other real estate, and so we wanted to add without really taking away. So other ideas that you can use for the fronts, the inside cover would be to you can also add a pocket at the bottom. I had thought about adding a side pocket, a belly band going right down the middle. Gosh, anything that you would normally do to a page, you could probably add to this as well. And I just used, since there was a bit of a color discrepancy, I mean, it's not an exact match, but really, once you add all the beautiful paper to it, nobody's going to notice. So I know that mine wasn't an exact match either, but it was pretty darn close. So I was okay with it. The alternative that you have to it too, which is also what I thought of, excuse me, was to make these out of the, that light blue paper that we used for this. I just felt at that point that I was adding a lot more of that secondary color than I really wanted. So I obviously decided not to. So the waterfalls come together super quick and easy. Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember who I found, I found this video online. I want to say it's Michelle, and I can't remember what the name of her channel is, but I will find it, and I will probably link it at some point, either in the description below or up at the top right. There'll be a link to that video. But super easy, and I have found this method to be virtually foolproof, in the sense that I always have a really nice edge on both sides. It's not overly fussy. It is such an amazing way to do a waterfall. I can't even get over it. So for this waterfall, so because we're going to do 2, you are going to need 2 pieces that are 5 by 11, 2 pieces that are 5 by 10, and 2 pieces that are 5 by 9. And so that's what you're going to start off with. So I've got my 5 by 11, my 5 by 10, my 5 by 9. Okay. So each one of these you are going to put in your scoreboard. I'll grab that just so that there is a bit of a demonstration. Okay. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and again, keeping this super simple, I'm going to start off with the 11. You're putting your 11 at the top, 11 inches at the top, and you are scoring at 4 1/4. You are flipping it 180 degrees, and you're scoring at 4 1/4. And you are doing the exact same thing with the 5 by 10, score at 4 1/4, turn it 180 degrees, score at 4 1/4, and then bringing in the 5 by 9, 4 1/4, spin it around, and 4 1/4. So it really legitimately doesn't get any simpler than that. So you're going to do that for all of your pages. I'm going to set this aside. Ugh. Okay. And then now you have this little, I don't know how easy it is to see that. So now I have almost like a little, not a hinge, but almost like a little bit of a spine. Let's call it that for right now. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to be layering these. So with the 5 by 11 piece at the bottom, and you can do this having if you have the score pal and the score mat, you just lay these inside one another, and making sure I have my sheets all set aside. So if I know that I've got this lined up at 4 1/4, right? So I scored here at 4 1/4. You're going to add your glue to the second piece, and you're only adding it to this rectangular piece. The front and the back, these flaps have to stay free and clear because that is what's creating your waterfall. Okay, so you are going to install this with a 1/2 inch. So you're putting this top score line is going to be lined up at 4 3/4. And that way you have a 1/2 inch spacer here. And then when I flip this over, well, of course I've moved it, you're going to have a 1/2 inch space here. Okay, so we are just going to take, I'm just going to use my liquid glue for this. I've used just the liquid glue on a few other waterfalls that I've done this way, and they hold together beautifully. So, because it's going in a book, it's not going to be, you know, it's going to be handled, but it's not going to be like have a lot of pressure or stress put on it. So perfect. Okay, so I'm basically going to just smooth this out, put some pressure on that, make sure our pieces are good. And then we're going to repeat and do the exact same thing for the last piece. So now I have everything laid out like a book open right in the middle. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the 5x9 piece. So again, I'm just going to add some liquid glue, just to this spine area. Again, for lack of a better word. This time I'm lining it up at 5 1/4, and it's going to sit between 5 1/4 and 5 3/4, making sure that everything is lined up, and get that pressed down. Again, making sure that I don't have any glue kind of coming out. And when you install it, now I've got this piece, this rectangular piece. This is the only part that you're adding the glue to, is this rectangular piece. It will lay in the book like this, and well, actually like this. And then you have your waterfall feature. So a super, super quick and easy way to get this waterfall done. I absolutely love it. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to kind of the original way I learned, which was to do the base, and then you're cutting out, much like we cut out those extra flaps, these things. This is how I was always taught to do the waterfall, right? Cut your piece, add a little bit extra for that flap, but then it always seemed like they never quite aligned properly. So doing it this way, I have never had a problem, and would highly, highly recommend it. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to finish doing my second waterfall, and then we're going to come back and I'll show you how I'm going to decorate them. Okay, so both of our waterfalls are done. I'm going to move this out of the way just because it can be a little bit distracting, I find, with all the lines. Excuse me. And my waterfall pieces. So I decided to do this pattern. I chose 2 different patterns. So I've got to make sure that I put this the right way. No, I think I had those. 1 second. All right, so there. Now they're right side up. Although really, for this one, I don't think it really matters a whole lot. There's a lot going on, so it could be interpreted as non-directional. This one is very much directional. So quite often I can look at the back and just know if it's right side up or upside down. And that seems to be the way that I'm doing it. Both are going to be absolutely identical. So I have cut these from the 12 by 12, and these are cut at 4 3/4 by 4. And so these are just going to layer up like that. And we're going to do the burgundy, the pink, burgundy, pink, burgundy, pink. And that's just kind of going to be how it is. And then I haven't already cut out the mats, but for the opposite side, you could easily, if you wanted to use the decorating paper, or the designer paper rather, you could certainly do that on the back side. I think I'm just going to carry through that little hint of blue that we did on the back sides of those. And I think I'm just going to use the light blue, which I can come back and do a little bit later. So I will get this done and just kind of fast forward so you can see what I'm doing, but you know, not taking all this extra time and showing you. Okay, so that's what the waterfalls are basically going to look like. Absolutely love the color combination. The other color combination I was looking at was using, there's a blue and a green, and I was really tempted to use those too, but opted to go this route instead. And what I have cut out for in between the waterfalls, sorry, I just gotta, they're little tiny strips. So, excuse me, hard to get a handle on them. So I'm going to use these green strips to go in between, like each of the little spacers or spines, whatever you want to call them, gussets. I don't know if it's a gusset necessarily. So I'm just going to go back through, and these guys are cut. I don't think I have it written down anywhere, so I will get that for you in just a second. Let me get this one down, and then I will tell you. So these little guys are cut at 3/8 of an inch by 4 3/4. So 3/8 of an inch by 4 3/4. So I cut these after I was done cutting absolutely everything else. And this way I kind of knew what papers I had to play around with. And they're not really, I mean, because they're so small, I wouldn't say that they're overly directional, with the exception of the fact that there are words here. So I'm just trying to make sure that the words are, although I'm not sure that many people are actually going to like take the time to stop and actually read the words. I don't want to put anything upside down. So, okay, so we've done all those. So for each waterfall, you're going to need 6 of the designer pieces. You're going to need, I believe, 6 of those. 2, 1, 2, 3. No, 5. Sorry, 5. Didn't think 6 sounded right, but so 5 of the little strips. And then if you wanted to decorate the front, you certainly can. And I also may come back and do that with the die cuts. Once again, everything is installed, then you can kind of tweak it and add where you feel like other things, where things are missing. So I am going to just get the other waterfall done so that waterfalls are ready to go. And then I'll go through, I think we'll start installing at that point, because then we've got some things that we can go back to and sorry, then we can go through very methodically and add the designer paper to it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now that we have I've got these two pieces cut. Actually, I just had to cut them because I realized I had the idea, and I think I was entertaining, well, just looking at what I had left over. I have 5 of the 8x8s, but none of them were the same. So, not that that really matters a whole lot, but anyhow, I wanted them to be the same. The waterfalls are the same, so I wanted these to be the same. I'm just going to ink up my edges really quickly on these two pieces. Then we're going to get to installing the, we'll put these pages down first. That's one thing that you have to remember. If you were putting anything on the spines too, before, and I can't remember if I have something cut, I do believe I have, that we're going to have to put those down first before we add anything into the album. And of course, I've got that mantra kind of going through my head because I am notorious for forgetting that kind of thing. And it really, you know, it comes down to sometimes the little details. So I've got all of the sides inked up, the edges, and like I was saying before, it just adds a little bit of something. You know, you probably, somebody who's looking at this album wouldn't necessarily notice, but I just like the finished edge. And this had some of the cut aparts, but thankfully I've already used one of the pages, at least one of the pages for the cut aparts. And the nice thing about Graphic 45 is they usually have one page of like larger cut aparts. So it'll have some of the 4x6, some of the, I want to say it's 3x4, those kind of things. And then it will have, they'll also include a couple of pages that have nice long strips. And I really, really love those, because those make for, you know, lovely accents. So if I were to use this, excuse me, this on a piece, on a page, then you can actually have, whoops, I got some glue stuck on my finger. You could actually use some of the strips as a nice little border, an accent. You can use it as a belly band, like fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to just apply this one to the back so that I don't forget. Because great at reminding others to do something, but not always great at remembering myself. So I'm going to try to get this as centered as possible. I love, I don't think there's a single paper in this collection that I don't like. And then that really sets it off. I really, really love that combination. It highlights the waterfall, the paper used on the waterfall. I haven't done the photo mats yet, so I will do that later. But because I'm putting this on a page, I am going to be using some double-sided tape. I have made that decision just now, obviously. Otherwise, probably would have had this done already, or should have had this done already. But nothing to add. Oh boy, I didn't cut that properly. Now I got an extra little bit. Okay. Don't have to do like completely like side by side coverage, but definitely want some decent coverage so that it will not go anywhere, because this is what's going to have like the most I guess stress put on, because you're not only it's holding everything onto or in your album. So I put 4 pieces of the double-sided tape I am going to peel those off now. Easier said than done always. And I have one of those pick tools, but I've got to be honest, I am such a tool when it comes to using that. I've poked myself more often than not and don't feel that it really helps me get the double-sided tape off. So I'm just going to stand, because I really want this as centered as possible. And with the double-sided tape, I don't feel like there is no wiggle room at all with the double-sided tape. Okay. All right. Installed. Good to make sure that your album is going the right way too. Maybe before you actually go installed. All right, so that is done there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side, but we've already added some double-sided tape to these. Often while I'm adding things that really need to be straight, I'm going to flip the book this way just so that I can see it more clearly. I probably am going to end up standing, but I only peel off a little bit of the double-sided score tape because I've been caught more than once. If it starts getting attached all the way down, then I feel like I'm done for. So again, I'm going to kind of do my best to get this as centered as possible. And if I tack the one side down that, whoops, I didn't even tack down. If I just kind of press to one side, like the side that you have face up, if I just tack this like by pressing it in place on the side, just making sure, yeah, that's not really impeding anything. So I'm going to keep the pressure with my thumb so that I can peel back this part, and then we are good to go. All right, so I'm just going to, you're going to repeat that same thing for every single section. Okay, so I'm going to show you next what I have, just so that we can kind of maybe get, I know I said I was probably going to do this in more than one part, but I don't feel like I'm going to be doing that. But I just wanted to show you section by section what I'm going to do. So I've shown you the waterfall, that's done. Installation of our extra flap, which of course you could always put some decorative paper along here. And again, I may come back and do that when everything is put together, just so that I have a better feel for what it's going to look like. And then I have cut little packages for each section. So what I have done, so I've cut 4 of the pieces. So you're going to need front and back, right, for the first page, front and back. Then we have our pocket page, and then front and back for the last page in the section. So that's why I have 4 pieces. They're all cut at 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. So my idea here is that they're each front and back of one of the designer papers that I can pick. I think I'm going to do this one for that side, this one for that side, and then we'll do the pocket page. Okay, so this, again, I have a thing for patterns. Like, I just really appreciate patterns. And so, yeah, so I tend to that's kind of how I decorate, is by using, I guess, pattern to create pattern, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to start off with this one. And again, doing our best to get this as centered as possible. I've already pre-inked all the edges for all of these papers. Okay, so that beautiful paper is done there. And then we're going to do the opposite side. It's going to go on the inside. So there's like an A side and a B side to each paper. And usually the A side will be, you know, super colorful, be like a big pattern. And then the B side will be something a little bit smaller of a pattern, I guess is how to best put it. Sometimes it's tone on tone. It could be even a solid. Just depends on the collection, I guess, and what the designers had in mind. And then for the pocket pages, I have cut 2 pieces. Again, going back to kind of like this pattern theme, I've cut 2 pieces to go on the top parts, like so. And then I'm going to use the opposite page or the opposite side to do the bottom. And so I have 2 of these cut, and they're 5 1/4 by 4 3/8 for the top part. And then the bottom ones are cut at 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. So for each section, you're going to need 2 of each, if this is how you decide to put it together. The reason why, normally when I'm doing pockets, I like to stick it in a little bit, but unfortunately, if I were to do that, I would have had to cut the top part significantly narrower to fit in the pocket. So as it is, I'm just going to leave it like at the top, and then this part will go at the bottom. Well, not that way, but and I think how I plan this out would be to use this pattern for the top, since we have this beautiful floral on that side, and we'll use the floral as the accent, and then we're going to do the opposite on the other page. So I think you're getting a good sense of the pattern I was talking about. Oh, geez. Everybody, yes, has their own way. And this is mine. Okay, so that goes there. This page goes... I just put the glue on the wrong side, I realized. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second. Go around. Even though there's not a lot on the front, there is some, and I don't want to have that be problematic later on, because it will bother me. So I'm just saving myself some headache for later. Okay, putting that on there, flipping that, and we're going to repeat the exact same thing on this side. So we're now going to do the big bold floral on the top with the coordinating pattern on the bottom. And again, just gonna, I've inked the edges, but I'm just going to show you in just a second what I mean. So you can tell on here that there's a little bit of the ink that has come to the front. And although you really don't notice it on here, you do notice it on the flowers. So that's what I meant by I had like put the glue on the wrong side of this page, but because I have 2 of them cut the same thing, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're doing the floral on the top this time, right? Yes. Okay. Getting myself all mixed up now. Okay, so this one is going to fit nicely at the top, and then we will have almost our section done. Almost. And then we're putting this burgundy one, which means that the solid page facing us is going to be, you guessed it, this burgundy floral, or the burgundy background, I should say. So this one is going to go here, and then we're going to end it off with the beautiful floral. Okay, so that is basically what I've done, and I kind of just went through and picked out, this was one of the first steps of decorating this album that I did, because it was obviously going to use up the most paper as far as, you know, the decorating portion goes. Just making sure I get this as straight as possible. There. So that, but you know, what you do also want to keep in mind, and I did do this for this album especially, is whenever I crack open a paper pack for a project like this, especially a large project, I go through the paper and I figure out what it is exactly that I'm going to be doing for the cover, because that you want to make sure you set aside. All too often, I shouldn't say often, I've learned my lesson after about 2 or 3 times, that all too often I was getting so involved in the decorating process that I finished doing all the decorating on the inside, closed my book, and realized, oh my gosh, I don't have enough paper to do the front. Or it's not the paper that I wanted. I wanted to use whatever. And so I do have the blue that we used on this. I am just using the 8x8, so it's not quite as big. The ratio is a little bit smaller, and I have that set up for the front, the front and the back covers, because I will be using some of the die cut, some of the cut apart, some of the strips. I'll be using a bunch of things for the outside. And so I set that aside. I had it cut, and it's like kind of in my no touch pile, so to speak. So this is basically how it looks. You've got your first little flap. Then we have our front and back. We have our pocket page. We have our pocket page, and then again, front and back. And this is basically how this is going to be put together the entire way through. So these are all the pieces that I have cut to decorate the pages. So in total, you're going to need 24 pieces to do the fronts and backs. So again, that's 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 for these. For the pocket pages, you are going to need 12 pieces for the top, 5 1/4 by 4 3/8. The bottom ones, you're going to need, again, 12 pieces, 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. And so that will get you all of your sections nicely and decorated. Okay. So in my mind, although I said I was probably going to make this just one big long video, I am going to pause it here. So pause it here for part number 1. I will, when I come back, we'll have the rest of my sections all done. And then we will do something with those little tags that I mentioned before that will, again, kind of use them in a different way that, you know, maybe you've not thought of yet. Thanks for joining me today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video so far and will join me again for part number 2. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, and the bell will give you a notification, or it should give you a notification every single time we post a new video, which we try to do every single week, if not multiple times during the week. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. We always answer every single one. And again, if you've liked it, give me a big old thumbs up. If you haven't, thumbs down works too. The analytics to YouTube don't really care. So I do, on the other hand, but still, I understand it's not always for everybody. So thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you have a fabulous day and you stay safe and well. Bye.